The Chicago Bulls took a loss yesterday versus the Indianapolis Pacers. And Dalen Terry got the start in yesterday's game. And I will say, as being a person that watched the game up close inside of the arena, Dalen Terry had a lukewarm start. But we're going to talk about that. We'll dive deeper into that. And then the Chicago Bulls are being linked to forward out of Georgia, Asa Newell. Y'all know we're going to talk about it all, plus a little bit more. But obviously, you got to hear the music first.
Cognac. Gang.
Shy Boys Podcast with the Cognac Boys. I'm Cognac Boy Bobby, and I'm holding it down on today's daily episode. If you tuned in with me today, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell as well. Now, yesterday, the Chicago Bulls faced off versus the Indiana Pacers, man, and they took that loss, 112 to 127. In that game, we seen Coby White cook in the first half and then ultimately end up burning the food. 20 points in the first half, ended the game with 6 points in the second half for a total of 26 points. Josh Giddey, he was all right, had 18 points, 9 rebounds, and 7 assists to kind of help out. Montes Buzelis had a okay night, didn't really do much, but did go ahead and get 18.6 rebounds and 3 assists on the day. And Zach Collins getting the start again, 29 minutes, 16 points in the game, but only 5 rebounds for the game. But I want to focus on Dalen Terry. Dalen Terry got the start yesterday with the starting lineup that consisted of Josh Giddey, Coby White, Montes Buzelis, and Zach Collins. And Dalen Terry was out there. Now, I will say this. I don't necessarily think that Dalen Terry would have started if guys like Kevin Huerter was available. But Kevin Huerter did not play yesterday. He had that right knee sprain. And I would say it would have been a great opportunity for Dalen Terry to just go out there and have a better overall game. You seen Dalen Terry start the first half, but coming out of halftime, Dalen Terry was not on the floor. That guy that took over coming out of halftime was Trey Jones. Dalen Terry did see a little bit more action. However, it left a lot to be desired, especially for a guy that I've been pulling for this entire season for him to get his stuff in order. 2 points on the night is just simply not good enough. And then you look at how the Chicago Bulls played while Dalen Terry was out there. They lacked some outside shooting, in my personal opinion. They relied on guys like Josh Giddey a little bit more and Coby White and Montes Buzelis to provide some of that outside shooting, because Dalen Terry just didn't really take the threes or didn't really be as aggressive as I thought he would be attacking on the offensive side. I believe that Dalen Terry has a strong, I believe not strong. I'm gonna just say I believe Dalen Terry has the ability to be effective going downhill. And if you watched and looked at the Indiana Pacers and you looked at their defensive game plan, they didn't want the Bulls to penetrate the paint. And that's where the problem lied, because while the Bulls were getting inside of the paint and kicking out, guys were unable to hit the outside shot, which kept the Pacers pretty much in the game, and what helped the Pacers pretty much pull away from the Chicago Bulls in the second half. It was a very good game, though. I will say that. Being live in enemy territory, I had my son with me. We had a good ass time out there. Hey, shout out to Indiana Pacers facility, man. It's a nice facility. They got some good customer service in there. But on the basketball court, my Chicago Bulls just didn't get it done. And Dalen Terry, man, look, I'm not saying it's just not working out. I'm not going to go that far. But I'm going to say that Dalen Terry right now, it is one game. We'll allow Dalen Terry some time to see what's to it. This is a guy that I don't necessarily believe that you'll pencil in as a starter moving forward if this situation was to come up again. If I'm looking at the track record of Billy Donovan, it looks like in last night's game that Billy Donovan trusted Trey Jones to fill that void a little bit more than a Dalen Terry. I still think Dalen Terry can give the Bulls something, but it would have been interesting to see if Julian Phillips would have been able to take more advantage of said opportunity if he was placed in the starting lineup. We did have some guys out, Lonzo, Kevin Herter. We already talked about that. We know P. Will is not available. We know Vooch is not available, and Ayo is done for the season. So it's not the end all be all for Dalen Terry, but it left a lot to be desired for a guy who I've been pulling for, to see if he can just be a little bit more consistent, be a little bit more better. I think what one of the major parts that's hurting Dalen Terry's game is the lack of the outside shot. Even when he's coming off the bench, it's just like the outside shot. You know what I'm saying? I believe the form has improved. I believe he's absolutely trying to knock him down. But what stands out is when you absolutely just knock down the shot. That's what stands out more so than attempting the shot. Yeah, we want you to attempt the shots, but can you convert the shots? And I think that's one aspect of Dalen Terry's game that has kind of pushed him to the wayside, because we know that Dalen Terry can bring you some energy on the defensive side. He can bring you some energy to your offense by helping other guys facilitate. But in this particular situation, it left a lot to be desired, and it was a lukewarm performance, to say the least. But hey, it is only one game. We'll see if he gets another opportunity to start, maybe the next game versus the Cleveland Cavs, or if he just going to come off the bench and Billy Donovan goes another route. Wherever it goes, I just hope that Dalen Terry continues on to play well, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But I do think that the coaching staff look at yesterday's performance and say, hey, we might have to keep Dalen on the bench. That's maybe where he'll be able to thrive a little bit more at, especially because that starting lineup, you needed that outside shooting to open up the lanes for Josh Giddey, to allow Kobe White to continue his solid play throughout the entire game and not just one half, because he had an incredible first half and it was up close and it was awesome. So we'll see. Now, before we get up out of here, we got to talk about a young prospect that is being linked to the Chicago Bulls, and Asa Newell from Georgia. This is a 6'11" power forward, ranking in at coming in at 220 pounds. So he's a big fella. And right now down at Georgia, he is a freshman. Played 29 games this season, 28 minutes per game, giving the Georgia Bulldogs about 15 points per game, 6 total rebounds, 1 assist, 1 block, 1 steal, and shooting 63%. No, excuse me. 55% from the field, but 30% from the three on just about 3 attempts from the 3-point line. Now, when you go out here and you try to match up and marry the stat sheet with the film, whatever you do, it looks okay. I would say it looks more than okay. I would say it looks pretty good. The guy's able to run the floor. You see him getting some breakaway steals as a guy that's 6'11", 220. You see some breakaway steals and going down the lane and finishing strong. You see a young fella who's okay defensively. You know what I'm saying? I want to do a little deeper dive into that before I say he's absolutely good as a defender. But I would say he has some tools that the Bulls could absolutely utilize if you go out there and it does become true that they select a guy like Newell from Georgia. He provides athleticism. He's going to be able to, draw some defenders and be able to drop it off to some cutters or another big that you might be able to line them up with. But I like the idea of going after a guy like this because I will prefer to have Montes Buzelis stay at the 3. That's just how I look at it. But you add another guy at a power forward like Newell, who can give you a little bit of a different game than a Montes Buzelis, and I'm not necessarily mad at it. So I take it for what you will. Now, Bleacher Report, they're giving him some NBA comps of players that's in the league right now, and I think they are relatively fair. Some of those guys include Jalen Smith, Brandon Clark, and Jonathan Isaac. Now, if this young fella can come out there and defend like a Jonathan Isaac, oh my God. If this guy can go out there and bring you some athleticism like a Brandon Clark, oh my God. If he can give you some 3-point shooting similar or close to a Jalen Smith, that this would be a hell of a player if he can combine those. But obviously, these are just comps. We don't necessarily know how it'll pan out for a player like this. But it will be very, very interesting to see how the Chicago Bulls feel about a player like this if they are indeed selecting around the 8, 9, 10 area in this upcoming draft. There will be more draft, mock drafts coming out linking other players to the Chicago Bulls. And we're going to start doing our deep dives into this to see who can fit and who can potentially not fit, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. I know that my co-host CDubb is hoping that the Chicago Bulls get an opportunity to try to grab Dylan Harper. I'm not mad at that either because he's a talented player as well with a father who played in the NBA. Doesn't necessarily mean anything, but it does mean something when you say, hey, this kid grew up around basketball, so he should be able to be a solid NBA player. But obviously we know that some guys, yeah, they grew up around basketball, but it doesn't necessarily always work out for said guys. Just because their dad plays doesn't mean that they're going to come into this NBA and be the same caliber of a player as their dad. But it will be interesting to see from that aspect when it comes to Dylan Harper. And then you talk about the guy that we've been talking about in Asa Newell. Hey, it's intriguing, man. It's some intriguing things that you would like to see. And like I said, I think this young fella can go out there and bring you something. We look at his last 5 games. Didn't necessarily have a great game versus Texas A&M when Newell only had 6 points, but before that against Missouri had 23 and 10. And then prior to that versus Auburn, he had 20 and 5 versus Auburn and 15 and 9 versus Florida. So a little up and down when it comes to the stat sheet from this young player. But again, I still think that he has some talent. I think he still brings some physicality that the Bulls could utilize if they were to go this route. I think he can run the floor like the Chicago Bulls want to do and push the pace. And if you can go ahead and get him if you can get him within your program to improve some of that shooting, to go along with some of that physical presence in the inside, you might have yourself a good basketball player that you can move forward with. But obviously, it's still early. We don't know. We still got months and months. We are still months and months away from actually the NBA draft. Hell, the NBA lottery to see what we're going to pick. We still got 21 games of basketball before we can even, start to narrow down who the options will be. But as a prospect, I think it's a good prospect to further evaluate and do a deeper dive into to see if he's a good fit for the Chicago Bulls. And we'll keep y'all locked in and keep y'all updated as that information comes along. So it's going to be interesting to see with these 21 games and then to see how the season ends, after June, after the finals and all that, to see what the Bulls will pick and then see who could potentially be on this squad moving forward. But I do like the prospect. We'll see what's to him a little bit more. We want to see how he performs during this NCAA tournament and all that stuff. So keep your eyes open on Asa Newell, 6'11" power forward out of Georgia, who's has some comps to Jalen Smith, Brandon Clark, and Jonathan Isaac. I'm just saying, it's very, very interesting to say the least. But that is it for me today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank y'all so much for tuning in into another episode of Shy Bulls Podcast. Before y'all roll up out of here, make sure that you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell as well. Thank y'all so much. Make sure you always see red, and y'all already know we're going to catch y'all on the next one for sure.
Cognac. Gang.